Kristen?
Yes.
Are we live? Yes, now we're live. Welcome, everybody, to the House Senate Conference on S.127, the Omnibus Housing Bill. And it is the 29th of May, Thursday, and here we are still. What we're going to do this morning is, first thing is the Senate presented to us yesterday a really well thought through, thank you very much, complete proposal, which really helped us. We met last night and have a proposal to give to you. The limitation is, although we will be using this side by side, the problem is the side by side only shows where we still disagree. And the bill isn't yellow lined. So what we're going to do is actually just walk through our list of what we're doing, because there's a number of areas where we're saying that we're going to work with your language. Okay.
And this proposal that we have from you is only on tax increment finance.
Yeah, although we can talk a little bit about other stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm focusing on today, this morning, we're focusing on the chip. Okay, and so I'm going to ask, and so
New one actually shows.
does it
the
show?
differences, right?
Yeah, it
differences,
shows
yeah.
differences.
So it's, well, this is our new.
This is the
Maybe
new one.
John can.
Yeah, let's have John introduce what we're looking at.
All right, John, you want to introduce, am I mischaracterizing?
No, not at all. So John Gray, legislative counsel. What you have is a side-by-side that shows the differences between the Senate proposal from yesterday related to CHIP and the House proposal related to CHIP from this morning. That's new to you. You also have a standalone doc unhighlighted that is just the House proposal for the CHIP sections. Probably most useful to look at the side-by-side. If the request is to see a doc that shows the changes against the House's former position, I have something that can do that, but I think what is most useful is probably just seeing the differences between the two proposals. The thing that you won't see in the side-by-side is evidence other than what you know to be the case from the different yesterday today of where concessions have been made, because those will not be highlighted sections, right? Those are changes that the House proposal is accepted from the Senate proposal. It doesn't show up as highlighted because those are now the same. So, but I'm happy to explain what those are, because I can just walk through depending on how you guys want to
I
proceed.
think what I'll ask Charlie to do is to walk us through our position issue by issue, which is some of which I guess could be characterized as concession. We'll take it from there.
Shall we? Good morning. So good to see you, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this morning. Yep.
In fact, wondering whether we ought to be looking at yesterday's side by side, which will show language that we are agreeing to.
Well,
So do it any way you want.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So, this just shows remaining points of disagreement. So we want to talk about the things we do agree on. One is we are adopting your version of affordable housing. So as you have described it, and you'll see that on page 1. We still are maintaining the House position of in perpetuity. That is our proposal back to you. So that and takes us through that first one, improvements on page 2.
Let me slow you down for a minute.
Okay.
So in other words, your schemata of how you define affordable housing, your mixed income, the low, moderate, and middle income, we're adopting that.
Okay, then on page 2, in terms of improvements, we have added the word reconstruction. On page 2, you'll see improvements means, and we really looked at what the definitions were within the TIF rules to look at that. So reconstruction is part of that, and then we just removed everything that was limiting or describing those specific things. It does not limit those. So it is, as long as it's in service of the chapter to create low and moderate housing, goes back to 1907, the section of the bill. All right, so that's very expansive. So,
Okay.
okay, keep going. The purpose, which is section 1907.
Give us a page if you're nice. Page 4. So,
Just pass the definitions. Oh, it's past the definitions. Oh, yes. Okay, the purpose is on page 4.
Of the side by side.
Of the side by side. Sorry.
oh, I thought you were working from there. Right.
Page 4 of the side by side. So we accepted your proposal to remove the word pilot. Okay.
In the interest of time, we should just go to the disagreements because these
Well,
are
I
pretty
think you
minor.
No, I think it's important to hear what they have agreed to. Sorry, I'm sorry, I was on this. So
Yeah, I
you started,
think the side by side. We are going with we are removing pilot.
On page
4. So there is no difference between your purpose and our purpose.
I don't.
Look at the bottom of very
It just
bottom.
says no difference.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay,
Really
right, I'm sorry, I'm.
Minor at this point.
Got
Yeah,
it.
we're going through this way because it doesn't necessarily jump out where we made a change where we agree. Okay, go on.
On number 5, we are still proposing to include in the description of the housing development site and any immediately, we're not agreeing to, and any immediately contiguous parcels. Okay. Page 7, unless I'm missing it. 7. We still have in here the concept of bona fide domicile and perpetuity. And that is another point of disagreement where we have the but for, we agreed to, are we there already? Yeah. On the but for, which is
page
on
8.
page 8. That's good. Yeah. Is it page 8? Yeah, the but for, yeah.
Test, I see.
So ours adopts what you had proposed. So it takes out all the different 3 guideposts.
Remember, we had more language.
Right.
And which we thought clarifying, we thought was obfuscating, and so we're omitting it and going through that.
At the bottom of page 8, a favorite of mine to change criterion to criteria because there's more than one.
Yep.
I'm thrilled, really
you.
thrilled.
It's really important to me, yeah.
It's important to
And
me
that's-
too, yes.
Where we're talking.
Yeah, he slipped it in.
And then on page 9, because we're talking about how to identify the amount of floor space. So it gives VEPSI the ability to either determine it's at least 65% of the floor area of the projected housing development is dedicated housing, or the projected housing development meaningfully addresses the purpose of section 1907, which goes back to the 1907 section of the purpose on the previous page.
Sorry, it's hard to read. Okay,
So-
so I still
So
think.
we have a second
Yep.
provision, which
Either or.
basically said they have discretion.
So if it doesn't meet the 65%, it's like, all right, can you just determine that it still meaningfully contributes to meeting the housing needs?
Question about the 65%, does it, I don't think it does, but does a parking garage count as floor area in the building? Or like it,
Good question.
That is exactly the reason that we think the 65% is going to have to be defined in guidelines or something like that by VEPSI, because every time you use that kind of thing, that's exactly the kind of question
Right.
they're going to have to
Which
answer.
is why maybe.
Which is why we didn't want to get into the detail of it. I mean, I think there's a strong argument that, what if it's podium parking? What if it's a separate, I mean, that's the kind of thing they can deal with.
But then they could probably deal with figuring out
Yeah.
the rest of it without a percent
Well,
prescribed.
we think that in this proposal, there's a percent because we think there needs to be some clear definition, and we don't think substantial does it.
On the bottom of page 9, we still are retaining the idea of a cap using the lifetime education property increment retention. So you'll see that on additional points of disagreements on page 10.
Sorry, so
We haven't changed the cap.
I just can't read it. In the lifetime,
Education property tax increment retention.
That's a definition that, excuse me, that's just part of what's necessary for the operation of the cap.
On page 10, after our discussions yesterday, we agreed about having a longer timeline for VEPSI to approve or deny an application. So not later than 60 days following the site visit conducted as part of the application's review, provided the council may extend this period by not more than 30 days in extenuating circumstances. So that gives enough that 2 months.
but 60 days after the site visit.
Yeah,
Right.
With
And an additional 30 days if they need it. Yeah.
if possible. Yeah.
Sorry, Chris, what were you saying?
No, I was just saying with the addition of 30 days if they need it for an extension.
Right.
Okay, we still have, all right. The but for was still in there. And then the December 31st, we still have in this proposal to you, the program length at 5 years. And then
Sorry, I've lost you.
oh, I'm sorry, page 10.
Yeah, I'm still.
Item 3.
Yeah.
And so you're still you're still at 2031?
Correct.
Yep. 2031, yes. And I'm sorry, the item above, number 1, that was the meets the but-for test, the process requirements, in either of the project criteria, as Senator Meadows pointed out, either that 65% or meaningfully contributes to the housing needs of the community. Yeah, so it's an either or in that situation. So the limit is still 40 million. I believe Pat Titterton from the Joint Fiscal Office has offered to meet with anybody and talk through the math. If you want to go over that, that might be a better use of time outside of our committee conference.
Also, it's not literally in here, but you all know there's an extra 5 million that the government made, but it's 40 million plus 40 million a year plus an extra 5 million a year if necessary.
Just to be clear, the spreadsheet that Pat did was for 60% increment retention, which
So
is now no longer in your proposal either.
That's true.
Right.
Okay,
That can be adjusted.
all right.
Okay, so now we are on to go through 12, 13, and on to page 14. You had asked for a different increment retention of 75 and 85. We were at 60 and 80. We came up to 65 and 80. That's our proposal at this point.
Sorry, and that is,
On page 14, on line,
yeah,
subparagraph B, subsection 1. Is that the right?
One and two.
Subparagraph B?
1 and 2.
Whatever.
Correct.
Subsection B, all right,
B1 and 2, you've got 65% and
80%, yeah.
80%.
And that's that section, so that's all reprinted there. And so page 17. All right. This one is, I need help with on this one.
oh, good, you can't read it either? That describe, I mean, the bottom line?
Oh, yeah, on the criteria, yeah. Yes, okay, right. So on the report annually, so we're looking for a report that describes the common reasons applicants to the Community and Housing Infrastructure Program fail to secure approval for tax increment financing, includes for each housing infrastructure project approved pursuant to the subchapter the following. Now we're on top of page 18. So we had discussions about really wanting to know what's working, what's not just the statistics on the ones that were approved. So it's not a necessarily detailed analysis, but we're looking for feedback.
Yeah.
Sure, this is working or not working.
Feedback on what's working and what's not.
Sorry, yes, Senator?
Charlie, on the bottom of page 17.
Yep.
We're talking about projects that failed to secure. And then number 1 is the date of approval.
Yes, that's on the entire report.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought it stopped at
Yeah.
the ones that failed. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the ones that didn't, you know,
So I'm just kidding.
didn't progress.
Right, or why they did. You know, was it that they couldn't demonstrate they could produce the increment? Was it that, what was it? We just want to know what's going on.
We can fix.
Yeah.
And if you remember on page 18, there is an item that's missing because it was something that we took out. That was our requirement that the report include all the units that have been sold and offered.
Right.
So that was a problematic language that you had pointed out to us. So we adopted what you had proposed and then go the number 5 on the right-hand side. As you can see, that the sales price for initial offerings of any housing units.
Right.
And then the other difference are the 11 that you had suggested we agreed to, which is an evaluation of the amount of grand list growth attributable to housing development and the amount of
Yeah.
grand list growth attributable to value appreciation. And C is still the sunset of January 15th, 2031. We changed the date to, because that was errantly written as 2030. So it was caught by alleged counsel to align with the other part. So, and then again, on 19, one of my favorite changes is changing criterion to criteria. Yeah.
Always amusing to know what strategies.
And on page 20, if we go to that, you'll see the removal of the shall for rulemaking. And it is really because of assurances that it was just a normal part of the process. We asked the Vermont Economic Progress Council to issue guidance for the implementation of the subchapter on or before November 1st, 2025. I imagine they may be able to issue it sooner than that based on the discussions we've had. So,
Are you there? Yeah.
um,
Oh, so just our thought was that the plan, if this works, that you'll be starting to implement January 1.
That's right.
So then if you work backwards, you're going to need some guidelines for people to understand how the application is going to work and what they can do. So that's why we put a November 1 deadline. If you think that you can do it quicker or you need more time, but we thought the sooner they get done, the sooner that applicants get those guidelines, the easier it would be for them to apply.
And I see that Sam has walked in the room. I would hope then they could be distilled and translated in some ways for, not that you're uneasy to understand, for our towns and all municipalities, so that we make it really something that is useful and accessible.
the last thing that we have not changed at this point is the sunset of TIF. So still at December 31st, 2031. So that is our counter proposal on
Chip.
CHIP.
As to non-chip,
So we're,
Not highlighted because it was not different. Yep, you don't have a countervailing proposal there.
and just remind, I'm sorry, I'm just slow there this morning. We had a fire alarm at the Capitol Plaza, so anything that happens to me right now today, you have to forgive.
Awesome.
So where is the sunset at the
Very end.
at the very sunset, right, okay, got it, because it's not.
Can I ask a question of the affordable housing community?
yes,
Going back to page 7, I just see Chris, I think via chip is watching. Is Polly
Yes,
here?
right. Oh,
Okay.
he's not here.
So on page 7, where it says any housing unit within the housing development be offered exclusively as a bona fide domicile in perpetuity. I think it was represented to us yesterday that this exists elsewhere in statute.
I don't think that was ever represented.
So this is a new concept.
it is our position.
It's a new concept, and it's one I'm not sure housing community supports.
Okay,
I'm just
That's
asking,
my
is this how you draft any affordable housing language, a bona fide domicile in perpetuity?
That doesn't sound familiar to me, but
Chris, for the record.
Chris Donnelly with Shipping Architect.
Thank you.
Did you consult with the affordable housing community in drafting this language, Ways and Means?
no, because it's not about affordable housing. I,
Did you talk to anyone in the housing community?
yes.
Who was that?
I don't, I don't think that cross-examination about this is really meaningful at this point. It's our position. We've given you where we are.
Yeah, no.
If you disagree with it, then make a counter.
I mean, I think it's helpful to know who you talked to write this language, but I don't think it came out of your committee.
I think this is a piece of
This is-
Ways and Means.
This is part of Ways and Means.
Adopted by the House.
The other issues are the non-chips issues. I just want to
Yeah,
mention.
let's.
I don't, it's not worth it at the moment. The reason is when you go through it, you'll see the two major issues that are out there are appeals.
Right.
And I need to talk to Ellen, and I haven't. I've asked Ellen to come by, see if she can come by, but she hasn't. So when I talk to Ellen,
There's a reference.
yeah, we can come back to you. And I have to talk to Representative Burrows about the issue having to do with
Universal design.
the universal
We
design.
did hear from Chad this morning, from VHFA.
Okay, and so I don't go away. So, but I mean, I can't do that here. I need to just talk with each of these people, and then when we get back together, we'll be in a position to talk about that.
I think it's a relevant question to ask who Ways and Means heard from to draft bona fide domicile in perpetuity.
Senator Ram, I think we expressed yesterday that our intent was to make sure that any public funds used to create housing would be for primary housing in perpetuity. That was the position of the Ways and Means Committee, or that is the position of the House, as voted by the House.
But you didn't hear from anybody.
We took a lot of testimony. I can't tell you specifically who testified on that specific word or that concept, but we took a lot of testimony over the weeks and months.
It would be a very new housing concept, so it is relevant to us if you didn't hear that this is a phrase commonly used in any of our housing policy.
Or in fact.
And we have many other affordable housing and
Right,
grant
okay, I
programs that
don't
don't
wanna-
use this language.
I understand. I've practiced law in this area for 30 years, and I have seen many restrictions placed on properties using a simple covenant. A covenant is a very common way of doing things.
Have you seen bona fide domicile in
No.
perpetuity?
It
Okay,
doesn't matter. It's the same thing. It's easy. The banks, the property lawyers, and the real estate agents are the ones who effectively administer it.
and did not testify on this. I think we
Okay,
should.
so we're gonna go. But the non-chip, we're down to just the appeals and universal study and everything else.
I have some language on immigrant fair housing that Cameron
Yeah.
worked on. I have confirmed that the landlords association it works for. I have not confirmed with migrant justice that it works for them, but I think we're getting closer. And that's, you have that.
Our position
Is that the,
Our position is to stick with the language in 127. That is, it just lists the three options, not showing any preference for any one of them, one way or the other.
That's still in this. It's section 2, as we discussed yesterday.
Yeah.
That's the
It's
change.
the number 2 is the challenge. In the fair housing.
It's on page 9,
Page 9 of the,
whatever my proposal signed by Simon.
The issue was in number 2, which is highlighted in yellow, which I think we need to update that language.
is it the position of
oh,
your?
right. This is, we've left it. We'd love to see your proposal.
That's it.
Yeah, and I think Cam
Sorry, I
has,
didn't remember. Okay,
Cam has.
thank you. All right.
Is that,
So at this point, I think we should break.
Right, I just wanted to say on universal design,
Yeah.
Chad did confirm that they had supported the notion that it be very focused. But I sent off Chad's comments to Mike DeRocher, so we may hear that.
All right.
Can I just ask one more question about the bona fide domicile in perpetuity? Did you hear anything in Ways and Means about how that affects value for the homeowner? Because, I've been in real estate deals where
yeah.
people won't go forward with something based on covenants that are out there.
Yeah. So we didn't, and then my personal experience is working with a nonprofit that creates housing permanent housing for permanent residents. And that in looking at a deed restriction to restrict it to just primary residence does have an effect on value. It does. We did not receive testimony on that, but that program is copied over after programs that are in Vail, also in Bozeman, other places throughout the country, to protect primary housing. In terms of the impact on market value, it varies. Some of those programs actually have a market unto themselves, and it's a very fast turnover market.
Did you hear anything about, if it has to be a bona fide domicile? Did you hear anything about folks that, we have an older state and maybe they want to go to Florida for the wintertime, so they're not going to be a full-time Vermont resident? Would that kick them out of that housing that they're in?
No, they could rent it out, but they can't rent it out short term. I think that, but to answer in the spirit of what you're saying, yes, I do. My own view is that I agree with Charlie. It affects value. And in fact, one of the things we're dealing with in Vermont is this explosion of short-term rentals is because short-term rentals generally do create, they're more profitable. So if we want to regulate in any way short-term rentals, we're going to be reducing property values from what they theoretically can be. It's just a choice. If we don't do that, well, then we are stuck with the short-term rentals. It's one or the other.
Or seasonal, because I would say short-term rental and seasonal ownership is really a huge impact, 18% or 17%.
Right.
The other piece I just wanted to bring up in the non-chip stuff was the VHFA language on off-site construction. If you see Chad's email to all of us this morning, they do not support keeping the language in if there's no money.
VHFA.
Yeah, I'm just saying there are two pieces. The first piece was about confirming that they had supported the very focused universal design language. And the second piece was if VHFA does not have the capacity, we would kindly ask the conference committee to remove this section of S.127 unless there are resources made available to complete the work.
Okay, I think we have to talk to them, assume for your purposes that it's in, because that is a complete 180-degree change of their position. I want to know more. I want to know more about it. Okay.
Yeah. That's what they told us. That
Yeah,
if there
that's
were
why
no
we took
resources, that's why we took it
That's
out.
not what they told us. So I'd like to.
There we are.
There we are. So I'd like to
Raise it
resolve
because
that.
It's just not a misrepresentation.
No, I'm
on our
not saying
end.
it's, I know that. I would never think that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Okay, we are going to go off and confer and talk to and do our vote on kids code. And then when do we want to reconvene?
I think
Whenever you're ready.
whenever you're ready. You want to pick a time, an estimated time, and then text.
Let's say 11:30.
Okay.
I think that's safe.
Okay.
As long as we have counsel.
I don't know what my life will be like.
Okay.
Right now, I'm told that things are happening and I need to talk to someone, but I am here now.
Okay.
Might you join us in the cloakroom? For
Yes.
20 minutes?
Let's do it.
That's even on the same floor, and you have to go by the slideshow. So if you have any downtime, make sure you check out the slideshow.
Okay, we can, now we're in recess and